Part 4. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 31. Chapter 31. Just read a book when you have nothing to do. Zhang Lingzi was sure she could hear some resentment from it. Zhang Wenhui also heard it. Hurry to explain to her daughter, your sister is usually so busy with work, but she took the time to see you this time. You kid, you can be satisfied. Zhang Lingxiu snorted lightly, but his expression softened, and he looked towards the door again. Where's Dad? He's not here. Zhang Wenhui immediately said, your Uncle Lu got us drunk the night before. We were still awake when we went out. Uncle Lu, Zhang Lingxiu frowned and couldn't help but punch the table in front of him. He is simply unkind and wants to see our family's jokes. Dad, he is just confused and still calls me brothers. Zhang Wenhui hurriedly reminded, oh, your hand is still hitting the table. If I had known, I should have brought you another medical kit. No, there is a medical room in the hospital. I don't need to go there for my minor injury. Zhang Wenhui forced a smile and said, just show off, you have been like this since you were a child, and you will continue to be like this when you are older. And don't say that to your father, because your father doesn't know what Lao Lu is planning, but what can you do? Since the family went bankrupt, only Lao Lu is willing to say a few words to him among the people he has interacted with in the past. You two siblings also know how proud he was in the past, but he still can't live with it. Having been sleeping together for more than 20 years, how could she not understand her husband's distress? Zhang Lingxiu pursed his lips, bit his cheek, and whispered, 3 years have passed. Forget it, let's not mention your dad today. Zhang Wenhui pinched her nose and reached out to touch her son's face through the glass. Xiao Su, listen to Mom. For the rest of the days, we will just wait and see. At that time, Mom hopes to welcome a handsome young man with a clean face. Zhang Lingxiu reluctantly nodded. Fights are sometimes unavoidable, but at worst he should be careful and protect his face. Look, I'm just rambling here, Zixi, what do you want to say to your brother? Zhang Lingzi looked at the young man with a little expectant look in his eyes. I brought you a few books that I selected myself. Hearing book, Zhang Lingxiu's expression suddenly changed. Zhang Lingzi just pretended not to see it and continued, when you have nothing to do, just read the book and flip through it. It's time to come out. Zhang Wenhui nodded along. Your sister is still thoughtful and reads books when you have nothing to do. Your sister must have chosen good books. When you come out, your mother will have to find a way to send you to school. It's better to lay the foundation first. This time, Zhang Lingxiu met the earnest eyes of the two women at home. No matter how reluctant he was, he could only nod his head obediently. As for going back to school, just think about it. He can guess the current situation at home even in this juvenile detention center. From the moment he entered here, he never expected to go to school after leaving. But I can't say this kind of thought. If I say it, I'm afraid I'll really cry. Time seems to be passing very fast at this moment. Before you know it, a reminder from the staff has sounded behind you. The time is almost up. Parents, please say goodbye to your children as soon as possible. How come half an hour has passed in the blink of an eye? Zhang Wenhui couldn't help but mutter to herself, and stood up reluctantly. Xiao Su, remember what Mom and your sister said. Wait a little longer, wait a little longer. Wait for Mom to pick you up. After saying that, I couldn't help but turn away and lowered my head to wipe away my tears. Zhang Lingzi looked at the child opposite who also had red eyes, stretched out her index finger and tapped the glass in front of her. When the pair of eyes that were almost identical to hers looked over, she softly said, everything will be fine. Zhang Lingxiu pursed his lips and nodded vigorously. When the tears welled up in his eyes and were about to fall, he suddenly turned around and strode away. Let's go, you guys should go back quickly. I'll read the book. They sent away a young boy who hid and cried, and stayed with Zhang Wenhui for a while. Finally, when she calmed down, the mother and daughter left the juvenile detention center. "Zixi, do you want to go home and sit down again?" Just after asking, Zhang Wenhui frowned and shook her head. "Forget it, the house hasn't been tidied up yet, your dad probably hasn't woken up yet, I guess he doesn't want to, you see his look. It would be nice if you could come over for a meal with Mr. Shen in 2 days." Just after visiting her son, she remembered that her daughter was one who never complained about her worries, and of course she never reported her good news, but she had to see the young couple living in harmony with her own eyes before she could really feel relieved. Hearing this, Zhang Lingzi immediately followed up, "I have a show next, which I have to record for a week. I'm afraid I won't have time to go back to eat." "Then work is more important. You can eat anytime." Zhang Lingzi nodded hurriedly, "Yeah, I think so too." They even went back to have dinner together. She has not even seen Shen Yunqing until now, let alone that man has been involved in entertainment news recently. What kind of food is he doing? She wanted to deal with the person quickly so that she could be free, but it was too late. Watching Zhang Wenhui enter the gate of the community, Zhang Lingzi said to the driver in the front seat, "Go to Hechun Hall. Since you are out for a trip, you should finish all the things you need to do before returning to the company." I thought about it and sent a text message saying that I would not be able to get back for a while. Tong Yu, who was still waiting for her artist to come back for a surprise wilderness survival training course, received the message. She waited and waited, and finally before the end of the morning, Zhang Lingzi came back with a large bag of Chinese medicine. "What is all this?" "Chinese medicine." Zhang Lingzi put the medicine bag on the table and looked at Lu Zhengzheng, who was standing behind Tong Yu. "Can Zhengzheng help me get through it?" Lu Zhengzheng nodded subconsciously, "Ah, okay." "Tong Yu, wait a minute, why are you drinking Chinese medicine when you are not sick or in pain?" "It's for body conditioning," Zhang Lingzi said, picking up the notebook and pen that Tong Yu had prepared for her on the table, and chose to run away. "I'm going to class first." Tong Yu, who still wanted to ask where the Chinese medicine came from, said, "I have never seen this girl be so active in class before." "Well, Sister Tong, do you still want to take this medicine?" "Forget it, let's get through it." She managed to save her life before, but now she is cherishing her life after all. She won't deliberately drink medicine to harm herself. Asterisk. No 3319 Zhang Lingxiu. Zhang Lingxiu stood up and said arrive, then stepped forward to take the package that was handed to him. It was so heavy that it weighed on his hands. Finally, when he heard dismissed, he almost couldn't wait to carry the package back to the dormitory, and sat in front of his bed to untie it. Halfway through the explanation, a few shadows cast in front of him. He frowned and looked up. "What are you doing?" "I heard that your mother and your sister came to see you this time." "Is your sister the big star?" "What is her name?" "Zhang Lingzi, right? The big star actually has a younger brother who is in a juvenile detention center." My eyes have been opened. My sister is a big star, and my brother is in a juvenile detention center. I guess your sister is not a good person, and she is still a big star. I don't know how she got famous in the industry. Could it be, he he. A few people looked at each other and laughed unscrupulously. Zhang Lingxiu couldn't help clenching his fists. What the hell? But thinking about what his mother and sister told him not long ago, he gritted his teeth and endured it. "It's because of your dirty minds that you think dirty things. Take back what you said before. Otherwise, what will happen? Just a little bit, I won't. Come on, let me see what the big stars bring to their younger brothers." Seeing that the unwashed hand that had just gone to the toilet was about to fall on the brand new page of the book in his arms, Zhang Lingxiu stood up suddenly. "Damn it, I can't bear it anymore." The dormitory suddenly became a mess. When the two sides were forcibly separated by the guards who came after hearing the noise, Zhang Lingxiu touched the corner of his mouth that was hit by the fist with some annoyance. He protected his face, but he was still unprepared. Limped back to the bed, he wiped the blood on his hands before reaching out to touch the big man who had just been thrown on the bed, a survey of historical figures for 5,000 years. What the hell? Has Zhang Lingzi forgotten that what he hated most since childhood was history books? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 32. Chapter 32. She doesn't have the brain. Just when one of the siblings was spreading out his notebook and doing training seriously, while the other was holding his nose and patiently chewing on a large book, they were deep in a mountain thousands of miles away from the imperial capital. Shen Yunqing had just finalized the final donation for charity with the local village chief. When he returned to the house where he was staying, he saw Hizhu wandering around the yard with his mobile phone. Still no signal. Sometimes, it's still very weak. Hizhu couldn't help but punch himself in the chest. It's all my fault this time. I accidentally lost the only signal booster. There was only one mountain road when they came in. The mountain road was rugged, with cliffs on one side and tens of thousands of feet on the other. The car had to be extremely careful when driving on it. Just as he was picking up the backpack containing the signal booster, the car bumped. In a panic, he failed to hold one of his hands steady, and the bag in his hand was thrown out through the open window. If the road is normal, just stop the car, get out of the car and pick it up. But this time, the location at hand was a cliff. It was really not worth it to search for a signal booster under the cliff. There shouldn't be any problems in the company. Before he could even say the word title, Assistant He's cell phone suddenly rang. Boss, this is the phone number of the company's public relations department. Shen Yunqing walked to the old tables and chairs placed in the yard, picked up the cracked teacup at hand, and sipped casually. Take it. But before Hizhu could be happy about the call that was finally connected, after hearing the personal report from the head of Shen's public relations department, his face darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Do you still need a minister to ask your boss for instructions on this kind of thing? You should have people delete these false news as soon as you learn that this news appears. The voice on the microphone was a little more troubled. Mr. He, many people in the comments are speculating that this news was released by Zhang Ziu's opponent. Zhang Ziu's opponent is most likely to be his wife. Didn't you tell me before that you can't specialize in anything related to that lady? Do you want to report it first? Of course, he also knew that it was best to suppress the news as soon as it appeared, but even though he had climbed to the position of minister, he was still working for others. If you accidentally make a mistake, you can still pack up and leave. Naturally, it is better to be cautious. Hizhu couldn't help but choke. Ever since he followed his boss to the hospital to visit his wife, he secretly guessed that the boss didn't care about his wife at all. There was a slight movement on it, and as a personal assistant, he had to pay attention to it all the time. Since then, he has paid more attention to his wife, and he did emphasize it to some people before leaving, and the director of the public relations department was one of them. But he never expected that this person would be so careful. Isn't this a trick to him? I made several calls earlier to report this matter, but Mr. He couldn't get through to you. Hizhu. He almost couldn't help but slap himself twice. Two surprises occurred during a business trip, both of which were caused by him. What happened? Hizhu raised his head and looked at the boss, who was looking at him with a cracked glass of water. He almost fell to his knees and shouted again, "Boss, I'm sorry." "Boss, Minister Han of the Public Relations Department said that a piece of news related to you suddenly appeared on the internet last night." The other protagonist was Miss Zhang Ziu. He said that Miss Zhang had a night party with a mysterious man in a hotel, and a picture of you was posted. The photo of his back, feeling the air pressure around him getting lower and lower, Hezuqiang stood up straight and continued, "Also, there are speculations in the comments that this news was released by Zhang Ziu's opponent. The most mentioned one is MRS. After saying the last three words, Hizoo felt that all the strength in his body had been drained away. It can't be her. Even after hearing that he had been on the entertainment news for no apparent reason, Shen Yunking's hand holding the teacup did not move at all, and his tone was as steady as the teacup in his hand. Hizoo was stunned when he heard this. Ah! Ah! The first ah was a subconscious response, and the latter ah was a sign of confusion as to why my boss was so sure. Shen Yunqing raised his eyes and looked at the rolling mountains in his field of vision. A figure that was completely different from the person he was waiting for flashed in his mind. Except for his appearance, he just stated the objective facts and said, "She doesn't have that brain." Hizoo. "Boss, do you know that your wife will kneel on the washboard when she goes back? Then please ask the boss for instructions on this matter. Don't waste unnecessary money, check the source of the video directly." Hizoo has a straight body and a clear mind, just like his own boss. Mingming has a fortune of hundreds of millions. Sometimes he is so generous that he wants to worship him, and sometimes he is so stingy that he is amazed. "Yes. Boss, I remember that the only time you had contact with Miss Zhang Ziyujiang was 6 months ago, at a business dinner in a hotel." Having been reminded like this, Hizoo suddenly had a clear impression. Speaking of which, it was the first time that he had seen his boss lose his composure just because of his profile. Even though he only left for less than 10 minutes and came back with a calm expression, he was still deeply impressed. "I'll contact Akabane right now. Who posted the news in the first place, how many times it went through in the middle, and who secretly took the photo half a year ago? Only by knowing these can we deal with it easily. Professional people do professional things." Taking advantage of the fact that the mobile phone still had some signal, Hizoo immediately dialed the phone. Shen Yunqing drank the last sip of water in the teacup. As soon as he put the cup down, a thin black hand reached out to take the cup away and add water. He held the cup, lowered his head to meet the child's timidly looking eyes, shook his head and said in a softer voice, "Thank you, but no need." "No, you're welcome." Shen Yunqing rubbed the child's head, glanced at Hizoo who was still seizing the time to make a phone call, turned around and lowered his head into the low house. Zhang Ziyu, if he hadn't heard this name mentioned again, he would have even forgotten it. There is really no need to worry. Asterisk. In a private residence in a high-end residential area in the imperial capital. With the air conditioner turned on inside the house, it is several degrees cooler than outside. Zhang Ziyu was leaning on the beige sofa in the living room, wrapped in a hand-woven blanket, and the red wine in the red wine glass in his hand was rippling slightly. Perhaps completely opposite to her leisurely and contented mood at the moment is Zhang Yuding, her agent, and her biological cousin sitting opposite. Even though the temperature in the room was low enough, a layer of fine beads of sweat appeared on Zhang Yuding's forehead. She looked at her famous celebrity cousin with confusion on her face. "What on earth do you think? Just let this news continue. Are you going to blow up? Do you know that because of such a shady news, your innocent persona has begun to collapse, and some big fans have even threatened to quit the group if you don't give an explanation? You are still in the mood to drink red wine. I am almost dying of anxiety. Aren't you afraid that Zhang Lingzi will use this news to stomp you down?" Hearing the name Zhang Lingzi, Zhang Ziyu's expression changed a little, and the red wine glass in his hand stopped shaking. "Cousin, I'm waiting." "What are you waiting for? Waiting for the man with only a single figure to refute the rumors first. It's been almost 24 hours, and the identity of the man hasn't been discovered on the internet yet. I think you can give up." Zhang Ziyu put down the wine glass in his hand, sat up and moved his upper body gracefully, and then said with a mysterious face, "Cousin, do you know whose back that is?" "Who?" Zhang Yuding met her cousin's gaze in disbelief. "You knew this a long time ago. And you kept it secret from me for so long. This is not what you have been urging me to do. I haven't had a chance to relax my ears all day long." "Who is it?" His name is Shen Yunqing. Never heard of that. Then do a search on the internet. If the so-called facts in this news are really true, what does it mean to have a pure character? I can withdraw from the circle immediately. She never dreamed that after half a year, someone would still associate her with that person and publish it online. With that person's ability, if this news was not allowed to exist, there would be no clues to be found on the internet. But the fact is that this news is still spreading, so can she imagine another possibility? Furthermore, if this news was really released by Zhang Lingzi's team, she might have to thank them. While she was still thinking about the future, Zhang Yuding was also holding her mobile phone and opening her mouth wide. Oh my god, how come you know this person? Zhang Ziyu didn't like hearing this. Why can't you do it? Zhang Yuding raised her head and couldn't help but tell the truth. You guys are from two different worlds. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 33. Chapter 33, Lost. I'm sorry, Miss Zhang. The little girl at the front desk wearing a white shirt, suit skirt, and meticulously long hair walked into the reception room a little hastily on high heels and smiled apologetically at the woman sitting in front of the window. I just went up. After asking for instructions, Mr. Shen is currently not in the company. Not there. Zhang Lingzi, who was admiring the green plants by the window, turned to look over. Isn't it working time now? She specially chose this time to come here. It was a working day and during working hours, when people were most likely to be in the company. The reason why she made such a trip in person was because when she finished the training at the company and wanted to make an appointment with Mr. Shen for a chat, she was surprised to find that there was no contact information for Mr. Shen on her mobile phone. In this world where everyone leaves each other's contact information almost immediately upon meeting each other, it was really beyond her expectation that two people on the same marriage certificate did not have each other's contact information. I don't know if Zhang Wenhui has it, but after having the experience of being urged to go home for dinner in the morning, Zhang Lingzi almost immediately gave up the idea of asking her family. So I had to use the stupidest method, personally coming to the place where the other person works to block people. That's right, Miss Zhang. Faced with Zhang Lingzi's question, the little girl at the front desk smiled good-naturedly. Mr. Shen is the big boss of our company, and his working hours are not fixed. It's said that Mr. Shen is already well. I haven't been to the company for a few days. It's probably a temporary business trip. How about you come back another day? Zhang Lingzi lowered her eyes and glanced at the green plants in front of her that had been cared for so that there wasn't a trace of dust on their leaves. She assumed that the luxury car she saw in Juxi Township that day did belong to Shen Yunqing. She estimated that several days had passed and it was time for the person to return to the imperial capital, so she came here with full confidence. Unexpectedly, the other party acted more unreasonably than she did. This business trip has taken quite a long time. Okay, thank you. Ms. Zhang, you're welcome. Please walk slowly. Zhang Lingzi walked away carrying her bag containing the remaining Chinese medicine. The little girl at the front desk who had just been in charge of receiving her was surrounded by other colleagues. Quick, 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 meow meow, tell us what is that person doing here? Is Zhang Lingzi's temper really as bad as what is said online? Did she get angry at you for returning without success? Yu Miao raised her hand and made a stop gesture. Oh my ears are getting irritated by all your chatter. Can you ask me one by one and answer each one? Isn't it almost time to get off work? As for the question I asked first, please answer me first. Okay. To be honest, I don't know what Miss Zhang is here for, but I guess she might want to compete for the spokesperson of Shen's jewelry brand. Isn't it said that Zhang Ziyu will be appointed as the spokesperson? They are right. Miss Zhang probably doesn't want to give up this opportunity. Then it must be her agent who talks about it. Besides, Mr. Shen shouldn't care about such a trivial matter, right? Yu Miao thought of the face she had just seen that still made her amazed in retrospect. Maybe it was because Mr. Shen was amazed when he saw her in person. After saying this, the others were silent for a moment and couldn't help but nodded. After all, when it comes to appearance, that person really has not lost to anyone, and it is understandable to have such confidence. What about her temper? Yu Miao shook her head at the colleague who asked this question. I don't think she has a bad temper. I read it on the internet before, and to be honest, I was a little afraid to speak when I saw her. But after I really got in touch with her, I felt that she was okay. It's pretty good. And, I don't know if it's my imagination, but I always feel a little nervous when facing that Miss Zhang, just like meeting our Mr. Shen. Really or not, can Zhang Lingzi compare with our Mr. Shen? Although Zhang Lingzi is a big star, you are looking down too high on her when comparing her with Mr. Shen. But according to what you said, it seems that the words on the internet are really not enough. Letter. Well, you still have to get in touch with yourself to know what a person is like. Yu Miao had no choice but to say, oh, I really feel that way, why don't you believe it? If Miss Zhang comes over next time, you can go and receive her in person. No. Then don't fight with me next time it's time, get off work. Asterisk. The promised next time is doomed to be far away. After 2 days of field survival assault training in the company, Zhang Lingzi also spent her free time getting a feel for the entertainment company she worked for. In the domestic entertainment industry, which is not big but not small, the entertainment company she works for is not really a giant. If we consider it as a first, second, or third-rate person, it is only a small one at most. Can be ranked at the bottom of the second rate. The person in charge of the company, Mr. Xiao, whose full name is Xiao Yifeng, is a second-generation rich man. When he founded this company, it was just for fun. Later, he accidentally signed the original company and several other newcomers with good qualifications, and the popularity slowly grew. After coming up, the company was revitalized from a half-dead state, and the big boss who was just playing around now became more concerned about his career. Calculated this way, although the original person has only been in the industry for more than 3 years, he can be regarded as a veteran of this company. In the past 2 days, when Zhang Lingzi was wandering around the company without anything else, she also saw a colleague who entered the company at about the same time as the original person, but the other person only nodded at her and left in a hurry. There were also several artists who had just signed in. These newbies didn't even nod to her and walked away, but they all looked frightened and nervous when they faced her, which made her really feel that she was in these. Popularity among colleagues. That means there is no popularity at all. Fortunately, for the artist profession, it is normal for colleagues not to see each other for 10 days and a half, or even for a year and a half. Xiao Yifeng is not worried about Zhang Lingzi's popularity. After all, he has never expected it. He was worried about something else. Didn't you say that Zhang Lingzi's temper got much better after she woke up after being injured? There was no need for Zhang Lingzi to take care of Yu Hui after she came on the show. I was thinking that Yu Hui is a newcomer after all, and this is her first time on the show. He has no experience, just Zhang Lingzi can give him some guidance occasionally. Tong Yu, who was sitting opposite her boss, was expressionless at the moment. When she heard this, she couldn't help but sneered, Mr. Xiao, you don't have to talk about the seniors and newcomers in such a high-sounding way, and the show will start tomorrow. Isn't it a bit unreasonable that you just informed me today? Xiao Yifeng sighed, stretched out his hand and rubbed his forehead. I'll tell you the truth, Yu Hui is a child of my uncle's family. He wanted to come to the entertainment industry and experience it, so he gave it to me. He just wanted a spot on the show, and it just happened to be there was already a vacancy in the program, so I gave it. Let me tell you, Tong Yu suddenly realized, I was just thinking about how much potential this Yu Hui has, so he was given such special attention by Mr. Xiao. He is a close relative. Xiao Yifeng, some favors are inevitable. Tong Yu stood up and said, I will tell my artist what Mr. Xiao ordered, but that's all. After all, Mr. Xiao, you also know Xiao 11's temper. Although it's better now, if you see it with your own eyes, now she will know how much she has changed. Xiao Yifeng was stunned for a moment, but still didn't take it seriously. Then you should remember to emphasize to her that being on this show is her compensation to the company. Tong Yu took a deep breath, nodded without saying anything, and turned to leave. She knows in her heart that she cannot object to what capital has decided. What's the point of staying here? Going down the stairs and walking through the corridor, the sound of conversation coming from an ajar door made her stop subconsciously. Yu Hui, you have worked hard for your goddess this time. It is a wilderness survival, you dare to go, I am convinced. When Tong Yu heard this, she thought the goddess mentioned inside was her own artist. Until another voice came out, only by participating in the show can I protect 11U. With her temperament, if she confronts Zhang Lingzi on the show, she will definitely suffer a loss. I came to this entertainment industry just for 11U, how could I watching Xiu suffer a loss? Tong Yu. What the hell, her fists are hard. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 34. Chapter 34 A Different Night. The door to the lounge was pushed open from the outside. Zhang Lingzi put down the teacup in her hand and looked up, and saw Tong Yu walking in from the outside with an extremely dark face. What's going on, did you have a quarrel with Mr. Xiao? Tong Yu took the tea handed over by Lu Zhengzheng and drank it in one gulp. Not only did it fail to extinguish the fire in her heart, but it even kept rising as she drank it. You are still in the mood to ask me, but after I finish what Mr. Xiao asked me to convey, you probably won't be in the mood anymore. Oh, Zhang Lingzi filled Tong Yu's cup, what did he ask you to convey? Tomorrow's survival variety show, in addition to you, there is another artist from our company who will participate. This time before Zhang Lingzi could speak, Lu Zhengzheng couldn't wait to ask, Sister Tong, who else is there? Yu Hui, one of the new people signed by the company last month. I know this. Everyone says he is the most handsome among this batch of newcomers. Lu Zhengzheng's eyes lit up and he raised his hand. Unfortunately, he didn't see the death gaze that Tong Yu cast towards him. He was only immersed in sharing the joy of the handsome guy. I heard that he is a rich second generation and only wears high-end custom-made clothes. Tong Yu couldn't help but sneer again. Not only is he a rich second generation, he is also a relative of our Mr. Xiao. After saying that, she reached out and tapped Lu Zhengzheng's head. You girl, don't act like a in front of me. Not only is he a relative of our Mr. Xiao, but he is also a fan of your sister Zixi. Lu Zhengzheng covered her forehead where she was hit and her eyes widened. She was stunned for 2 seconds and then said in disbelief, is Yu Hui a fan of Zhang Ziyu? Tong Yu nodded, I accidentally heard it on the way back. Do you know what Yu Hui called Zhang Ziyu, goddess? As soon as the word goddess came out, Lu Zhengzheng opened her mouth and didn't know what to say. There is only disillusionment in my heart. With such a handsome face, why are his eyes so blind? Otherwise, why don't you follow the real person who is right in front of you, and instead follow a copycat? The sound of water pouring interrupted the indignation of the agent and assistant. Zhang Lingzi pushed the 2 cups that had just been filled with water forward, then took a sip from the one in front of her, and extracted the key points. So, Mr. Xiao just asked Sister Tong to come over because he wanted me to take care of you in tomorrow's program. A newcomer. Speaking of this, Tong Yu still felt as if she had swallowed a fly. He didn't say that he would take care of you like a nanny. He just mentioned something that could be mentioned on the show. After all, Yu Hui is the first. It's inevitable to make mistakes when you're on a live show like this. But now that we know that Yu Hui is going after his goddess, when it comes to the show, he will definitely be around his goddess. It's okay to just deal with it. I'm sorry that I didn't get to show on the show. This incident made even her feel aggrieved for her own artist. It can only be said that those with the surname Xiao and those with the surname Yu are not human in this matter. Zhang Lingzi raised her eyes and looked at Tong Yu, and met the lady's eyes expressing her dissatisfaction for herself. She couldn't help but curl her lips and smiled lightly. Okay, I understand what Sister Tong means. Tong Yu turned the water glass in her hand half a circle and looked at Zhang Lingzi's calm look for a while. She suddenly felt relieved. If you put this matter aside, you should explode now. It is true that setbacks make people grow. Tapping the cup in his hand again, it just saves money on replacing the cup. Before I put it away, I could no longer keep this cup. Zhang Lingzi raised his glass to the two people in front of him. Then I wish me all the best for the next show. Okay, good luck. 3 cups clinked together, making a crisp sound. Asterisk. Lu Zhengzheng followed Zhang Lingzi back home. When you get to the place, you roll up your sleeves, and like a hard-working little bee, you cook, make medicine, and pack your luggage without leaving anything behind. This made Zhang Lingzi once again confirm that this girl was probably more familiar with this residence than her master. Seeing that Lu Zhengzheng was about to move the suitcase out, Zhang Lingzi quickly stopped her. Just simply pack the luggage. I'll probably have to hand it all in when the show starts filming, and I won't be able to use it. Lu Zhengzheng thought the same thing and found a backpack. Then use this to carry your luggage. It's light. When it was time to boil the medicine, she felt worried again. Sister Zixi, you haven't finished drinking this medicine yet. How can you continue to drink it when you go to record a show? The program is special, so I can only stop it for a while. It would be fine if it were another show, but before she watched foreign survival variety shows, they were filmed 24 hours a day and night. Since the country intends to follow suit, it is estimated that it will do the same. It's probably unrealistic to make medicine for yourself on the show. Is it okay to just break it off like this? Has little effect. Lu Zhengzheng felt relieved. Considering that someone from the program team would pick her up early tomorrow morning, Zhang Lingzi went back to the bedroom early to rest after dinner. Lying on the bed, under the influence of the bowl of Chinese medicine I just drank, I fell asleep soon. Lu Zhengzheng was sitting cross-legged on the sofa in the living room, turning down the volume and watching TV. She didn't have to follow tomorrow's program at any time, so there was no need to go to bed early and get up early. I couldn't help but take out my phone to look at it. I couldn't help but frown when I saw that the entry about Zhangziu had the word explosion behind it. Even though her first impression of Mr. Shen, whom she had only met once, was extremely shocking, she couldn't help but feel a little dissatisfied at this moment. She didn't believe that the news had already reached this page and Mr. Shen hadn't seen it yet. But if we still allow the news to continue to boil, is it possible that we have forgotten Sister Zixi, the real wife? Or do you want both genuine products and high imitations? That's really scumbag. With disappointment and indignation, Lu Zhengzheng turned off the TV and silently returned to her second bedroom. I would have stopped looking at my phone if I had known it earlier, and the good mood of watching TV would have been ruined. Asterisk. A black business car speeds on the highway. Hizhu sat in the passenger seat and finished answering the phone, then turned around and looked at the man who was half lying in the back seat with his eyes closed and concentrating. Just as he was hesitating whether to wake the person up now, the person he was looking at opened his eyes first. Under the dim yellow light in the car, even if the eyes had just been opened, they looked as clear as if they had not fallen asleep before. Hizhu shouted softly, "Boss." Shen Yunqing picked up the glasses placed on the small table next to him and put them on. The reflection on the lenses suddenly softened the look in his eyes. "But have you found out?" "Yes, Akabane just sent over the found information, and I just summarized it. Well, Shen Yunqing nodded, took a bottle of mineral water and opened it. Let's talk about it. For the business dinner held at Yunhee Hotel half a year ago, the organizer invited some celebrities to accompany us. Many popular celebrities went there, including Zhang Ziyu, and it attracted a lot of paparazzi to follow. Boss, your photo was taken by a paparazzi named Deng Xing. Fortunately, it only changed hands once. The photo was bought by a female star named Su Wenyu a week ago. Seeing that his boss didn't show any impatience on his face, Zhu continued, Su Wenyu and Zhang Ziyu played the first and second female roles in a TV series that was just completed not long ago, but it is said that Zhang Ziyu was filming during this period. She was very favored by the director, and she added a lot of scenes, which were almost equal to those of the female lead. Su Wenyu was very senior, and he was probably very dissatisfied with the fact that his role was taken away by a newcomer, so he asked someone to send such a notice. Draft. Now that everything has been investigated clearly, Shen Yunqing just listened and drank water, and now slowly screwed on the cap of the mineral water bottle. Then let's deal with it as soon as possible. Zhu nodded subconsciously, glanced at the street lights outside, and then looked down at his watch. Boss, it's 10 o'clock in the evening. Is it a little too late to deal with things at this time? Shen Yunqing raised her eyes and glanced at him lightly. Aren't you and I busy too? Zhu. He stretched out his hand and wiped his face. Yes, he was still sitting in the car this late at night, busy with work that he shouldn't have done. How could the instigators be sleeping soundly in their own beds? Let no one even think about sleeping well. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 35. Chapter 35, Vigorous Clarification Statement. Anyone who is sleeping soundly but is suddenly woken up by a crazy shake will probably not be in a better mood. Especially when Zhang Ziyu was still having a sweet dream about making his dream come true, he was suddenly interrupted. When he opened his eyes, he almost couldn't help but curse. But when she saw her cousin's face full of panic and anger, she calmed down after being stunned for a few seconds. What happened? It is impossible for my cousin not to know the reason why she went to bed early today. Unless something particularly important happened, she would never disturb her good sleep. 11 Something big happened. Zhang Yuding's mouth trembled as she tried to explain clearly the whole story she had just learned. But when the words came to her lips, she didn't know where to start, so she had to hand over the bag she had brought along with her. Cell phone, please read this message first. Zhang Ziyu rubbed his sleepy eyes and pursed his lips before taking the phone. His heart suddenly sank when he saw the content clearly. A statement of apology and clarification was clearly displayed on the screen, issued by Su Wenyu Studio. The statement was stamped with black text on a white background and was hammered to death. Zhang Ziyu bit his lip and patiently read every word in the statement carefully, and the hand holding the phone unconsciously tightened. The whole point of the statement was to distance herself from the mysterious man. She could only think of one person who would do this. Zhang Yuding's voice sounded above the head. We have always guessed that the announcement the day before yesterday was from Zhang Lingzi. We didn't expect it to be Su Wenyu, but it's true that a biting dog never barks. For Su Wenyu Studio to be able to issue such an apology statement in the middle of the night, I guess it is the Mr. Shen you mentioned who took action. This can be regarded as a drain on the bottom of the cauldron, hiding everything at the end. It's easier and more ruthless to find out the news than to suppress it. Looking at it this way, Mr. Shen shouldn't have any feelings for you. Stop talking, Zhang Ziyu interrupted sharply. Zhang Yuding had no choice but to swallow back the unfinished meaning. Ziyu, don't be too disappointed. I said it before. You two are from two different worlds. We can't reach that high. The sweet dream was broken before long. Zhang Ziyu couldn't bear to hear this the most. I told you to stop talking and get out. I want to sleep. Okay, okay, I'll leave now. But there's one more thing I have to remind you. Su Wenyu is now forced to expose herself on the internet for arranging actresses she has worked with before. It's quite a crisis of character. The two of you acted together before. She is still starring in that drama, and I'm afraid there will be twists and turns in this drama, and it may even not be aired. After all, who would go to the theater again if they know that the actors in it are not good enough? It's not like you're the only one showing this drama. Zhang Ziu's response was that he finally couldn't help but smash the pillow beside him. Seeing her ferocious expression, Zhang Yuding quickly walked a few steps out of the room and closed the door behind her back. Others say Zhang Ziu has a good temper, 800 times better than Zhang Lingzi. But she and Zhang Ziu grew up together, so they just laughed at this statement. Not only did Zhang Ziu explode, but the internet also exploded. Everyone has to go to work and school during the day, and even if they have no time, they still have to spend time with their families and so on. Nighttime is the consistent time to surf the internet. The first people to see the apology statement were Su Wenyu's fans, who set up a special reminder. The first reaction after reading it was disbelief. Su Wenyu debuted almost 10 years ago. Many people grew up watching her dramas. She is definitely a powerful actress in the entertainment industry. How could such an actress with both beauty and strength do such a thing that would discredit the younger generation in the draft? For a while, fans left messages one after another, wanting to get an explanation from their idol. But Su Wenyu seemed to have completely cut off contact with the outside world. From the initial anxious waiting, to the gradual despair, it didn't take long actually. The next thing I noticed was the largest group of passers-by on the internet. They only knew Su Wenyu as an actress with a good reputation. It was rare to see such a self-destructive and apologetic statement, and they immediately started a lively discussion with great interest. I thought it was Zhang Lingzi who did it before, but I didn't expect that Su Wenyu came out to claim it first. I can only say that you are very brave. That's not how courage is used. As long as Su Wenyu and her studio are in the right mind, there is no way they would take the initiative to issue such an apology statement. It is obviously forced. Let me analyze it. Zhang Ziu probably doesn't have that much energy. After all, I don't know how many times this draft changed hands before it was sent out. Look at which of the previous drafts you can find the original source. Most of them are either spend money to suppress it or let it ferment and slowly cool down, but this time we directly approached Su Wenyu, and Su Wenyu had to risk the ruin of his career to issue this clarification and apology statement. Issue 2. Continuing from the previous article, I analyze that the only one who can take action is the mysterious man mentioned in the news. The opponent is powerful, and Su Wenyu must do what the opponent says no matter how reluctant he is. The analysis above is in place. Applause. However, we netizens are a bit useless. It has been 2 days and 2 nights, and the apology and clarification statement have been issued, but we have not found any clues about the mysterious man. The people upstairs are thinking nonsense. Su Wenyu can only admit defeat this time. What does it mean is not very clear. You still want to check for clues. Be careful to send yourself in before you find out. I really want to see that person's front view. The back view is so stunning, and it's really annoying not to be able to see the front view. I would like to advise the person upstairs to give up this dangerous idea as soon as possible. There are some people you can't inquire about if you want to. With the same advice, add 1. Zhang Ziu frantically scrolled through the comments on his phone as if he was torturing himself. More than once, he wanted to cut out the trumpet and type out the name Shen Yunqing, but he gritted his teeth and gave up at the last moment. From the way that man treated Su Wenyu, we could see that he was a merciless master at all. She didn't dare to bet that she would be the accident. Should someone follow the clues and find her, Su Wenyu's present is her future. But this should be the last time that she and that person were mentioned at the same time. Having been struggling and feeling uncomfortable for half the night, Zhang Ziu found that he really couldn't sleep. even though he knew he should put down his phone and close his eyes and go to sleep. There are many people who can't sleep either. All the staff in Su Wenayu's studio, including Su Wenayu himself, stayed up all night, their eyes red from the sleep, and the depressive atmosphere permeated every corner of the studio. Everyone can't figure it out. How could it be that person? They have sent countless specious press releases like this before, and nothing has happened to them. Only this one has caused such a big stumble, and they may even be unable to get out of it at all. Even if they were the top actors in the entertainment industry, they would not be gathered here in the middle of the night just to discuss a plan that could restore the collapse of their artist's personality. At dawn, Su Wenayu, who had been sitting stiffly in his chair, picked up the mobile phone beside him, took a deep breath and called the director. "Director, I'm sorry, I will pay for my mistake." The voice on the other end of the phone was equally hoarse and tired. "Wenayu, you are confused. Have you been in the industry for so long that you have forgotten who you can and cannot mess with? This script should win you the next TV Festival award. The trump card, now, whether it can be released as scheduled is a question. I really didn't expect it. It was just a silhouette, and even the license plate of the car next to her was hidden. She thought she respected the privacy of outsiders enough, but she never thought that the other party could find out about her so quickly and deal with it so ruthlessly. She thought her position in this circle was stable enough, but she forgot that there were people outside the world, and there were always people who could crush her with their hands, but she didn't know how to provoke them. She regretted it, but it was too late. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 36. Chapter 36. Maybe he's a weirdo. The morning sunlight shines into the room. After a good night's sleep, Zhang Lingzi had become accustomed to going to the refrigerator to get water when she wanted to drink. This time, she tore off the sticky note that Lu Zhengzheng left on the refrigerator door last night. Sister Zixi, breakfast has been prepared and placed in the third compartment of the refrigerator. It can be eaten in 3 minutes in the microwave. Find the cooked breakfast in the refrigerator, put it in the microwave and set the time. Before Zhang Lingzi could sigh again at the convenience of the modern world, she heard the doorbell ringing outside. When Zhang Lingzi went to open the door, she took a look at the clock hanging in the living room. It was not yet the time that the program team had agreed to pick up the person. Was this a temporary advance? When she opened the door, she met a familiar face. "Sister Tong, why are you here so early?" Tong Yu stared at Zhang Lingzi, who was full of leisure and contentment, for 2 seconds, then walked into the house carrying the breakfast she bought on the way. "What time did you go to bed last night?" "Go to bed before 9 o'clock. I can see that your energy level is not that good. It's not like me, who spends the whole night sleeping. Are you busy at work?" "That's not true, the internet exploded. Hey, where's that girl Zheng Zheng? Didn't she stay at your place last night?" "I'm still asleep and haven't woken up yet. I'll call her, and we'll talk while eating later." Tong Yu said that she was familiar with the situation and walked to the second bedroom to call for someone. Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows and turned around into the kitchen to take out the freshly heated breakfast. Lu Zhengzheng, who was woken up, looked at Sister Tong's face above her and couldn't recover for a while. She asked with a nasal voice, "Sister Tong, why are you here? It seems that you don't know about the big explosion on the internet last night." Tong Yu grabbed her arm and tore her off the bed. "This is not like you. Didn't you always surf the internet in the middle of the night? Maybe it's because Sister Zixi went to bed early and it affected me. If you say so, I also want to sleep with Xiao 11 for a few nights to see if the dark circles under my eyes can be eliminated. I'll go wash up first and then come out to have breakfast." 5 minutes later, the three of them sat down at the dining table. Zhang Lingzi took a bite of the breakfast made by Lu Zhengzheng, a bite of the steamed buns bought by Tong Yu, and a sip of sweet soy milk. It seemed that she was not eating quickly. In fact, she ate 2 portions per person without letting the other 2 people at the table notice. Come out. In stark contrast to her are Tong Yu and Lu Zhengzheng. After taking a sip of soy milk, Tong Yu started talking about a major earthquake that suddenly appeared on the internet late last night, as impassioned as a speech. Lu Zhengzheng originally just wanted to have breakfast with him, but he was so stunned that he even forgot to bite the bun in his hand. His concentration was amazing. In comparison, Zhang Lingzi, who was still eating breakfast seriously, seemed a bit out of place. That Mr. Shen is so powerful. Speaking of which, before I went to bed last night, I saw that the draft was still on the headlines. I was still a little angry with Mr. Shen. I didn't expect that this person would be fine if he didn't deal with it. Once he did, he would deal with it. So simple. Tong Yu nodded and sighed. I didn't expect to find Su Wenyu directly. The drama she filmed with Zhang Ziyu hasn't aired yet, and now it seems that it may be pornographic. You deserve it. You should think of the consequences when you wantonly arrange others. Now that it is exposed, you will suffer the consequences. Who says otherwise? Tong Yu said, looking up at Zhang Lingzi, who was chewing a bun seriously across from her. Looking at it from this point of view, Mr. Shen and Zhang Ziyu should have nothing to do with each other. It's also abominable that Su Wenyu forced the 2 of them to get together. The original intention of her words was to make Zhang Lingzi relax. Now that Mr. Shen has proven his innocence, they will not hold on to this matter. Zhang Lingzi finished the last bite of the buns and nodded while wiping her hands. It's indeed pretty awesome. People are not in the emperor, and they can also remotely control the emperor's capital. It is indeed a great sentence to hold the people hidden behind the scenes. At least she can't do this now. Tong Yu felt relieved. Then let's stop this topic. Eat quickly, otherwise you will get cold. Zhang Lingzi took a sip from the last half cup of soy milk, lowered her eyes and thought about how that person did this. First of all, there must be capable people under her hands. She has now seen how huge the network is, and it can be said that it has exceeded her imagination. But being able to accurately snipe the rumor-mongers behind the scenes from such a huge and complex network ocean is probably a very capable person. Furthermore, from what Tong Yu said just now, Su Wenyu's status in the circle is probably not low, at least much higher than hers now. Even for a person like this, he can only issue an apology and clarification statement overnight, but he still dares not even give an explanation, which means that even Su Wenyu cannot afford to offend Shen Yunqing. Then the key comes. Having money, power, and capable people under his command, such a person is considered a proud existence in this modern world. Why did he fall in love with the original person in the first place? Tu's original appearance. Her face is indeed well made, but I don't see that person often looking at her face. She has never even shown her face after getting married. In the end, Zhang Lingzi could only come to a somewhat far-fetched conclusion: this is probably a weirdo. Ding dong. The doorbell rang again, and Lu Zhengzheng was about to put down the buns in her hands and stand up to open the door. Zhang Lingzi put down her cup before her and stood up. You go on eating, I'll open the door. Outside the door, the 2 survival program staff members who were assigned to pick up Zhang Lingzi both had expressions of despair. While waiting for the door to open, I was still complaining softly. Why are we so unlucky? Zhang Lingzi was chosen among the 5 guests. Guess how long we have to wait? It's only after 7 o'clock now. I guess we have to wait for more than half an hour. I just hope that Miss Zhang will be in a better mood today, so that we can suffer less torture on the way back. But I think it won't be much better. I heard that Zhang Lingzi's company boss forced her to participate in this show. She was unwilling to do so. Can you be happy? I'm so envious of the 2 people who went to pick up Zhang Ziyu. Zhang Ziyu is kind-hearted and gentle. Maybe they could have breakfast together at Zhang Ziyu's house in the past. I also. Before he finished speaking, the door in front of him opened. The two of them subconsciously shut up, stood upright and looked into the door. Facing that bright and colorful face even though it was naked, my mind went blank for a moment. "From the survival program team, please come in." 3 minutes later. The two of them were sitting on the sofa in the living room wearing disposable slippers, holding cups with hot milk in their hands, and they were still in a state of being unable to recover. "Now, you were invited in? Did you even drink warm milk? I have to say that it is quite cold in the imperial capital in the early morning, so drinking such a cup of hot milk is really refreshing." However, they still couldn't believe that they were at Zhang Lingzi's house. Facing Zhang Lingzi, who got up early and had a good temper and invited them to drink hot milk, it felt really fantasy. Zhang Lingzi went back to the bedroom to change her clothes, put the backpack Lu Zhengzheng packed for her last night on her back, and finally picked up her mobile phone. "We're ready to go." So fast. This sofa is so comfortable that they shamelessly want to sit on it for a while longer. The other side. Two staff members from the survival program also arrived in front of Zhang Ziu's private residence. After briefly visiting the environment of the front community and this small but beautiful villa, the two of them rang the doorbell with great anticipation. "We are lucky." The two men who were responsible for picking up Zhang Lingzi almost cried when I saw them leaving. "This is the first time I've seen Goddess Zhang so early. Do you think she will open the door for us in her pajamas later? In such a big villa, there will be an ant, right?" "That's true." After waiting for a long time, but still no one opened the door, the two people couldn't help but look at each other. "Press it again, maybe you didn't hear it just now." In the master bedroom, Zhang Ziu, who had barely fallen asleep until dawn, listened to the doorbell ringing in his ears. He impatiently pushed the quilt over his head, turned over and wanted to continue sleeping, but was still disturbed and couldn't sleep. I couldn't help shouting, "Who is ringing the doorbell? I'm so annoyed." Zhang Yuding was in the next bedroom. Although she didn't go to bed early, she was urged to get up by the doorbell. After washing her face with cold water, she remembered what day it was and hurriedly went to the master bedroom to call someone. When she pulled the quilt off Zhang Ziu's body, she faced a face with big dark circles and red bloodshot eyes, a haggard face with impatience written on it, and she couldn't help but widen her eyes. "What did you do last night? How did you end up like this? Quick, 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 get up and put on makeup. Have you forgotten the day you joined the survival show crew today? How can you look like this to others?" Outside the gate of the villa, the two of them have changed their standing position to squatting, quietly looking at the address received on their mobile phones. "Did we get the wrong address? No one lives in this villa at all." They were tired from standing just now, and now their legs are almost numb from squatting. When can this door be opened? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 37. Chapter 37 First. The atmosphere in the car was awkward and slightly tense. The car was an ordinary small car. Zhang Lingzi sat in the back seat and tilted her head to look at the scenery outside the window. Ever since Lu Zhengzheng occasionally mentioned that playing with her cell phone or reading in the car would hurt her eyes, she felt like she had never touched her cell phone again when she was in the car. Fortunately, the fleeting scenery outside the car window was enough for her to feast her eyes on. Two staff members were sitting in the front seat, one was concentrating on driving, and the other was sitting very upright in the passenger seat. It is the kind of person who doesn't dare to move after looking at the figure quietly looking at the scenery in the back seat through the rear-view mirror. They swore they had never been so focused since they started driving. "It always felt like I was picking up a top important person rather than picking up a guest from the show. It's really a ghost." In another car, an atmosphere of silence spread. After waiting for nearly an hour, while checking the address with their colleagues, the two finally waited until the door of the villa was opened. Not to mention being invited in to sit and drink water, they turned back the same way from the moment they saw the person. They only heard Zhang Ziyu say two words to them, "Get in the car." When they got to the car, the two wanted to explain that it was a bit late to set off now and they would drive faster on the road. When they turned around, they saw a face with "I want to sleep, don't bother me" written all over it, so they had to quickly the words were swallowed back. The two looked at each other for a moment, listening to the sound of breathing getting longer and longer behind them, and only they knew what they were thinking. The program team called the guests to remind them before filming started, and it is impossible that Zhang Ziyu did not receive it. But looking at Zhang Ziyu's current state, it was obvious that he stayed up late last night and got up late this morning. He made them wait at the gate for almost an hour in the cold wind, and they had to catch up on their sleep in the car. I remember that there was a time when people on the internet praised Zhang Ziyu for his regular work and rest routine and his level of professionalism comparable to that of Invalu. Hearing is deceptive and seeing is believing. Now they have to have a more or less reserved attitude. Asterisk. In a spacious VIP lounge at the airport, machines for filming and live broadcasting have been set up. The director and a group of staff are waiting outside the camera. I don't know who will be the first to arrive. It should be Zhang Ziyu. Her home address is quite close to the airport, but I'm sure the last person to come over is Zhang Lingzi. Not to mention the farthest away, she probably hasn't even gotten up yet. Director Li Shuo turned around and glared at the two people who were whispering. He frowned when he lowered his head to look at the time on his watch. His role as the general director of the survival program this time is also a bold attempt. Naturally, he hopes that the conditions of the several guests participating in the program will be stable. The one that worries him the most is Zhang Lingzi. When he first learned that Zhang Lingzi was coming, he even wanted to persuade his boss to get rid of this person. How could such a little ancestor who liked to make trouble adapt to survive in the wilderness? It's a pity that the opinion was rejected. The artist agreed to participate, so he could only accept this failure. After all, he is just a director. The room returned to silence. At this moment, the door to the lounge was pushed open from the outside. Everyone immediately looked up and looked over, wanting to see who would be the first guest to arrive. A face with clear water and lotus soon came into view. Zhang, Teacher Zhang. The person who spoke first had a hint of disbelief in his tone. Li Shuo frowned and stood up. Teacher Zhang is the first one to arrive. Sit down first and take a rest. Have you had breakfast? Zhang Lingzi actually took in the expressions of everyone in the lounge the moment she walked in. Did she not expect that it was her who came in? There are many things that will happen next that you did not expect. Director Li, good morning, everyone. We've already had breakfast. Thank you for your concern, Director Li. Looking at the machine standing in the corner with a green light flashing, it looked like it was turned on. Zhang Lingzi put a smile on her lips and picked up her backpack. Soon he walked to a blank sofa and sat down happily. As soon as she sat down, she discovered an unexpected surprise. She was a little regretful that she didn't have time to read the morning news today, but there was a brand new newspaper on the table in front of her, which more or less made up for her regret of missing the morning news. Seeing that no one was touching the newspaper, and no one wanted to talk to her, she reached out to take it, lowered her head and read through it quietly. Li Shuo looked at Zhang Lingzi and then at the two staff members who went to pick up Zhang Lingzi. When he sat down again, he couldn't help but look at the figure who was naturally flipping through the newspaper. He and Zhang Lingzi have not collaborated before. After all, he is responsible for niche programs similar to survival. This is the first time he has seen a person in real life, which makes it impossible for him to connect this little girl quietly reading the newspaper with the little ancestor who dominates the world online. His two subordinates didn't pick up the wrong person, right? The two staff members responsible for picking up Zhang Lingzi were silently surrounded by others. It's not easy for people to talk quietly at the scene, so the small group on the mobile phone suddenly became lively. What happened, Zhang Lingzi was the first one to arrive. 3 exclamation points are enough to convey shock. Fortunately, both of them have the surname Zhang. I almost called them wrong just now. Zuzhu and Xiaoliu, tell me, why are you so fast? Kanji and Xiaoliu were the 2 staff members who went to pick up Zhang Lingzi. They were worried about not finding a chance to show off, so they immediately became energetic when they saw this question. We were also worried because we were afraid that we would be late to pick up people, but guess what, we almost rang the doorbell when we arrived, and the door was opened right after. Teacher Zhang had even finished breakfast at that time. When she went back to the room to change clothes and get her luggage, she didn't forget to ask her assistant to pour us 2 cups of hot milk. You were actually invited in. Yes, I took a look at the celebrity's luxurious house. The hot milk also smells good. After this message was sent, the small group was quiet for a few seconds. Asking is envy. Kanji is a girl. Seeing this, she pursed her lips and continued typing. This is my first time contacting Teacher Zhang. I feel that she is not the same person as I told you online. Although she is not approachable, after all, she has the aura of a star. But in this meeting, I felt respected. Xiaolu typed after her, +1, I think it is necessary for everyone to get to know Teacher Zhang again. She is really different from those mentioned on the internet. Zhang Lingzi turned over a page of the newspaper and suddenly turned her head to look in the direction of the door. Other people who were quietly watching her every move also looked towards the door when they saw this. The next second, the door to the lounge was pushed open from the outside, and a voice came in before anyone arrived, "Am I not late?" Zhang Lingzi raised his head slightly and looked at the tall young man standing at the door. Wearing decent casual clothes, his hair seems to have been specially styled, and his sunglasses are placed on the tall bridge of his nose. At first glance, he looks like a pampered young man. Yu Hui, a fan of Zhang Ziyu, also comes here for Zhang Ziyu. She looked away and continued reading the newspaper. Had she known that there was such a person, he was not worthy of her attention for even a second. Yu Hui's smile froze. He took off his sunglasses and nodded to everyone. After entering, he looked around the lounge and chose the seat farthest away from Zhang Lingzi. Li Shuo calmly glanced at Yu Huiko's position and replied, Teacher Zhang is the first, and you are the second. It's not too late. Yu Hui smiled and nodded, but his fingers pinched his clothes and legs impatiently. Hell, Zhang Lingzi was actually the first one to arrive. He thought his goddess would be the first one, so he hurried over without even having time to eat breakfast. The atmosphere in the lounge quickly returned to quiet after being lively for a while. Everyone looked at the 2 far apart figures in front of the camera and couldn't help but look at each other. I thought that there would be 2 guests here, they were from the same company, and chatting with each other would make the lounge more lively. But now, anyone can see that Zhang Lingzi and Yu Hui are not dealing with each other, and they don't even bother to talk. Not even bothering to deal with it. Li Shuo's relaxed brows slowly wrinkled again. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 38. Chapter 38. Who else hasn't arrived yet? What once again made Zhang Lingzi look away from the newspaper was the somewhat familiar Sister Zixi. She looked up and met Zhang Kaiwen's somewhat proud eyes. Zhang Kaiwen. You didn't expect me to be there this time. Zhang Kaiwen put his backpack on the sofa next to Zhang Lingzi. After saying hello to the director and staff and Yu Hui, who was sitting far away, he naturally sat next to Zhang Lingzi. Position. Then he saw clearly what Zhang Lingzi was reading. Are you reading the newspaper? What, it's not possible. Yes, but I get a headache when I read these densely packed small characters. Zhang Lingzi calmly turned to the other side of the newspaper and replied smoothly, then you can sit further away. As soon as the words fell, everyone could not help but hold their breath. Different from Yu Hui, a newcomer who has just entered the industry and cannot be new again, Jong Kaiwan is also a popular niche player. He changed his career as an esports player and has a straightforward personality that has attracted countless fans. His fans span the esports and entertainment circles. Is it really okay for Zhang Lingzi to speak so rudely? Facts have proved that it has no effect at all. Zhang Kaiwan was stunned and did not move. He even took out his mobile phone from his pocket and said, "Sister Zixi, what's so interesting about this newspaper? Do you want to play a game?" "What game?" "Competitive game, one of the most popular games on the market right now." Zhang Lingzi put down the newspaper she had just read, took out her phone and looked at the battery level displayed on the screen. "The battery is almost out. I won't play anymore. You can play by yourself." "All right." Yu Hui listened to the two of them chatting with open ears. He hesitated for a moment but couldn't help but said, "Is the game teacher Zhang mentioned Dragon League?" Zhang Kaiwan nodded casually, "Yeah." Yu Hui took out his mobile phone and said, "I have been playing this game recently. How about we form a team?" Zhang Kaiwan then raised his head and looked at him. "What rank are you in?" 7 paragraphs. "My number is 12 Dan, and I can barely make it. Okay, I'll give you a hand." Anyway, he can play by himself, or he can play with someone else. After forming a team in the game and confirming the start, Zhang Kaiwan noticed the small mark next to Yu Hui's game avatar. "Are you in a promotion match?" "I've been beaten several times before, but I haven't been able to get up. Please take care of me, Teacher Zhang." Soon, the game started, and intense game background sounds and fighting sounds suddenly sounded in the lounge. Zhang Lingzi was sitting aside and was inevitably attracted to some attention. She turned to look at the mobile phone screen in Zhang Kaiwan's hand. As the most popular game on the market currently, the graphics are natural and exquisite, the game characters and various skills are also beautiful and distinctive, and the sensory experience is perfect. Even though she didn't understand the rules of the game, she could still see that the two parties above were fighting. Game characters are either strong or weak. "I'm going back, but you betray me." "Ahem, sorry, I was not careful just now." "You'd better follow me and don't give away any more heads." Yu Hui pursed his lips and was told that his ears felt a little hot. He just saw Zhang Kaiwan chatting with Zhang Lingzi, but he ignored him, and then he took the opportunity to talk about playing games together. "But I forgot that Zhang Kaiwan has always been known in the industry for his outspokenness. Now in front of the camera and other people in the lounge, especially Zhang Lingzi, he was said to be too useless for playing games, which made him somewhat unbearable. Even vaguely regretted that the game score was improved, but it might as well not be improved. After finishing a victory without any suspense, he quickly quit the game on the pretext that his phone was running out of battery. When he raised his head, he met Zhang Lingzi's glance, and he suddenly felt embarrassed and had been seen through. For a moment, his whole face became a little stiffer. As the killing sounds continued to ring out on Zhang Kaiwan's mobile phone, the door to the lounge was pushed open again. This time everyone in the lounge stood up to greet this visitor, and even Zhang Kaiwan paused his beloved game. Just because the person who comes deserves their respect. Lin Jing, a former world boxing athlete, is a big shot in the sports circle who has won several world-class competition championships for his country, and other intercontinental and national competition champions. It can be said that he single-handedly supported the domestic competition in the early years. Fighting career. Later, his physical strength declined and old injuries recurred, so he chose to retire. After recuperating his health, he moved to the entertainment industry. He only appeared in TV series and movies with main themes. Now he is one of the specially invited resident actors of CCTV. Nowadays, whether you are in the sports or entertainment circles, when you see Lin Jing, you have to call him Brother Lin or Teacher Lin. It seems that I am not the last one to come. Please sit down. Don't stand, sit down. This time Li Shuo personally took a sip of warm water and handed it over. Teacher Lin, Now you have 4 of the 8 guests, and there are 4 left. Lin Jing took the cup and nodded with a smile, just go about your business. Li Shuo then returned to sit behind the camera. Zhang Lingzi also silently withdrew her gaze. She was only informed by Tong Yu yesterday about the other 7 guests on this survival show except her. Among them, Tong Yu emphasized the most on Mr. Lin Jing, listing the many honors he had received and his current status in the industry. Let her offend no one and offend this person. Now seeing the real person, it was a bit different from what she imagined. The real person is leaner and shorter than she imagined, but she will never underestimate such a person because of this. You can't just look at people by their superficial appearance. Based on her observation just now, even if Mr. Lin Jing is getting older and his condition has declined, trying to knock down all the people in the lounge is just a joke. Zhang Kaiwen paused the game and did not open it again. In front of Lin Jing, how dare he play games while scolding his teammates for being too bad. Fortunately, 3 more guests arrived soon. Exploration experts Su Ai and Zhou Yi are a like-minded couple, while Su Zhao is a veteran. The 3 of them are also specially invited amateur guests in this survival variety show. The 3 of them said hello to Lin Jing first, and Su Ai generously stepped forward to ask for an autograph from Zhang Kaiwen. Then the young lovers sat together and chatted quietly, while Su Zhao chatted with Lin Jing. The atmosphere in the lounge slowly became lively as the guests arrived one after another. It's just that the atmosphere in the corner belonging to the behind-the-scenes staff is somewhat stagnant. There is still one person who has not arrived yet, and it is Zhang Ziyu who they had guessed would be the first one to arrive. After waiting for a while, Li Shuo looked at the time and calmly stood up with his cell phone and walked out of the back door of the lounge. After coming out, I made a phone call to the person responsible for picking up Zhang Ziyu. When the other party was connected, he suppressed his anger and asked, "Where are you now? Do you know that everyone is waiting for you now? Teacher Lin arrived early, why is it so difficult for her, Zhang Ziyu, to get someone?" Fortunately, his previous evaluation of Zhang Ziyu was much higher than that of Zhang Lingzi, but as soon as the filming of the show started, Zhang Ziyu dropped the ball for him. The person who answered the phone was also embarrassed at this moment. He glanced at the figure who was still sleeping in the rearview mirror and lowered his voice and explained, "Director Li, we arrived at Teacher Jiang's house on time, but we were waiting at the door. It took almost an hour to wait for people to come out, and now we are rushing towards the airport." "Have you been waiting for an hour? What's wrong with your voice? Did you become mute when you called the door?" "No, Teacher Zhang fell asleep shortly after getting in the car. He's still awake now, so I don't dare to speak loudly." In the corridor of the airport VIP room where people were coming and going, Li Shuo couldn't help but darken his face. In the lounge, Yu Hui looked towards the door of the lounge again and couldn't help but tap the palm of his hand with his mobile phone. "Why hasn't the goddess come yet? Don't you know that Lin Jing is among the guests this time, so it's not suitable for her to appear in the finale?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 39. Chapter 39. Are you looking for excitement? Zhang Kaiwen was just as confused. He even asked Zhang Lingzi in a low voice, "Isn't Zhang Ziyu not sure who the guests are this time? Mr. Lin Jing is here, and there are still people who want to appear in the finale. They have to think how shameful they are." Zhang Lingzi has a different guess. Su Wenyu's apology and clarification statement last night, Zhang Ziyu was considered a direct party. Although her night meeting with a mysterious man was clarified, her acting career was also implicated and suffered a setback. It is very possible to go to bed late and get up late because of this. However, she could not have imagined that what kept Zhang Ziyu awake all night was that the upcoming drama was blocked, And the most important thing was that the scandal was clarified so straightforwardly, which completely broke Zhang Ziyu's fantasy. After waiting for nearly half an hour, even the crew of the scheduled special flight came over to ask, and finally Zhang Ziyu, who had arrived belatedly, arrived. Zhang Ziyu was still a little confused when he was woken up in the car. It wasn't until he saw that the person in front of him was not a cousin but an unfamiliar face that he quickly put away the impatience on his face and asked, "Are you here?" The little girl responsible for waking her up nodded gloomily, with a smile on her face, "Teacher Zhang, let's go there quickly." "Wait, let me touch up my makeup, please help me straighten my skirt." The little girl looked at each other silently with her companion, and looked at the man who was still sitting in the car slowly applying makeup, and couldn't help but take a deep breath quietly. "It's coming soon," she endures. The journey from the parking lot to the lounge was originally only 10 minutes, but Zhang Ziyu delayed it by more than doubling the time. So when the door to the lounge opened, everyone couldn't help but look up and saw a long skirt with layers of smoke pink tulle and a face with delicate makeup. But no one felt surprised at this moment, only the feeling that all their patience was fed to the dog. They came here early to film the show, not to wait so long just to see someone make a grand appearance. Even Yu Hui couldn't help but raise his hand to touch his forehead. The goddess was very beautiful, but it was really a stupid move to do this today. "Sorry, I'm late." Sensing that the atmosphere was a little tense, Zhang Ziyu secretly said something bad and quickly apologized sincerely. But Li Shuo felt that he really couldn't be generous at the moment, and his tone of voice was firm. "We are all waiting for you." After that, he looked at Zhang Lingzi, who was sitting on the sofa with a calm expression. "Zhang Lingzi was the first to come here." "Yes, I've been waiting for a full hour now." The smile on Zhang Ziyu's face suddenly wavered. When he turned his head and saw the figure who stood out in the crowd even though he was wearing casual clothes, he bit his cheek hard and managed to calm down. "I'm really sorry for keeping Sister Ling 11 waiting for so long." Zhang Lingzi raised her head and met Zhang Ziyu's gaze. "Looking at it this way, the face in front of me does look a bit like hers, but if we say that the profile is 60% similar, then the front face is only about 30% similar. Especially now that there are more and more heavy makeups used to cover dark circles and haggard complexions. They look good and are definitely enough for taking pictures, but they look a bit stiff in person. Don't go out of your way to apologize to me, everyone came quite early." This sentence made everyone present almost immediately understand the implication of Zhang Lingzi's words, "You are the only one who came last." Kanji almost laughed out loud and quickly covered his mouth. "So fresh, she likes it so much." Just when Zhang Ziyu could no longer hold back the smile on his face, Yu turned around to save the situation. "Everyone is here, director, do you want to leave now?" Li Shuo glanced at him and didn't say much. He just waved his hand and said, "Let's go." He didn't care about Zhang Ziyu's apology, he only cared about whether the show could start filming on time. For such a variety show, there are more than 60 guests, staff, and medical team. The program team specially chartered a small passenger plane with generous funds. But he was almost delayed because of Zhang Ziyu's late arrival. Now he just wanted to reach his destination on time. Getting on the plane, Zhang Lingzi just chose a seat by the window and sat down, and the next second there was someone next to her. Zhang Kaiwan grinned his big white teeth and explained in a low voice, "Sister Zixi, if I don't sit here, I have to sit with Zhang Ziyu or Yu Hui. It's better to sit with you." Moreover, he saw that Zhang Ziyu had glanced in his direction several times when he was choosing a seat just now, and he might have wanted to sit next to him. I have to say that he had a good impression of Zhang Ziyu before. Although he has never cooperated with her, the evaluation of Zhang Ziyu on the internet is quite good. Compared with Zhang Lingzi, he is a world away. But this time he saw a real person with his own eyes, and the impression he had on him was really not a good one. Not to mention being late, you put on heavy makeup and wore a skirt. Are you trying to be among the only 3 female guests? No matter which way he did it, he felt unhappy. Comparatively speaking, he is naturally willing to sit next to someone who makes him feel more comfortable. Zhang Ziyu watched Zhang Kaiwen sit down next to Zhang Lingzi, and saw Yu Hui, who had helped her out in the lounge before, waving to her, and then walked over and sat down. Took the hem of her floor-length skirt and explained in the same low voice, "I didn't mean to be late today. Something happened last night. I couldn't fall asleep very late. I accidentally got up late in the morning." Yu Hui suddenly looked stunned. It must be Su Wenyu's apology statement. "I knew you were innocent." Fortunately, the matter was clarified quickly and the impact was not too big. After seeing the clarification, he felt relieved and went to sleep. Unexpectedly, the goddess was greatly affected by this incident. Zhang Ziyu smiled reluctantly, acquiescing to the fact that this sentence did not touch on his point of view at all. Until she saw the dark embroidery on the corner of Yu's clothes. After looking at it carefully for a few seconds, she took the initiative to raise the topic, "Are you a newcomer? Or are you an amateur guest?" "Newcomer, I just signed a contract with the company not long ago, and I'm still your fan." "Yes, it's my pleasure, do you need a signature?" As the plane took off, Zhang Lingzi looked out the window at the blue sky and white clouds that seemed to be within reach, while listening to Zhang Kaiwen next to him starting to play his standalone minigame, and was distracted by the conversation coming from the back row. It can only be said that Zhang Ziyu was able to become famous so quickly under the name of being a resemblance to his original self. He did have some skills. Unexpectedly, in such a short time, even the 18th generation of Yu Hui's ancestors were tricked out, and he was still happy. Obviously didn't respond. It wasn't until two gurgling sounds sounded in succession that the two people in the back row were able to speak freely. "Didn't you have breakfast?" "You didn't have breakfast." It is a true portrayal of being graceful rather than bloated. What's even more tragic is that neither of them has anything to eat in their luggage. Zhang Lingzi had some convenient snacks in her bag. Lu Zhengzheng didn't know if she could eat them, so she stuffed some into her mouth. But she had no intention of taking it out. Be hungry, your memory will increase. Finally, I couldn't bear it until noon, and finally meals were served on the plane. Everyone gets a box lunch and a cup of instant soup, and the dishes are the same. Enough to feed an adult. Zhang Lingzi took the lunch box handed by the stewardess and thanked her. She pretended not to hear Zhang Kaiwen's muttering that the airplane meal was not delicious. After opening the lunch box, she took a sip of soup and started eating seriously. She thought she ate pretty fast. After all, the airplane food was not really good enough to chew slowly and savor. But she had just finished eating when she heard a voice from behind, "I'm done eating." Curiosity prompted her to look back and saw the lunch box in front of Zhang Ziyu. She glanced at the food inside and it seemed that it had not been touched. When she looked closely, she noticed that the rice and vegetables seemed to have been eaten a few times. "Look." Zhang Lingzi was silently shocked. "How can you still survive in the wilderness with this amount of food?" She chose to participate in this wilderness survival to pay off her debt. What about Zhang Ziyu? Feeling that life is too boring, so you are looking for some excitement? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 40. Chapter 40 Wilderness Survival Live Broadcast Room opens. Equally surprised was Yu Hui, who was sitting next to him. He looked at the lunch box that he had eaten almost half of, and then at the seemingly untouched lunch box in front of Zhang Ziyu. He stopped talking for a moment, but couldn't help but ask, "Are you full now?" Zhang Ziyu wiped the corners of his mouth gracefully with a tissue and nodded, "I have always had a small appetite. The little niece at home eats more than this in one meal. Is it possible that all the female stars in the entertainment industry have such little stomachs?" He looked through the gap in the seat at the backs of the two people in the front row who were still lowering their heads to eat. When he saw the nearly finished lunch box in front of Zhang Lingzi, he silently gave up his suspicions. Sure enough, only my own goddess is the little fairy who eats the wind and drinks the dew. After nearly 6 hours of flight, the plane finally arrived at its destination. The time we got off the plane happened to be 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the Imperial City. The sun was still high in the sky, but everything as far as the eye could see was desolate. The ancient and dilapidated village, and the elderly people not far away looking over curiously and fearfully, all indicate that they are now far away from prosperity. In fact, Zhang Lingzi was quite surprised to be able to meet local people after arriving at her destination. She thought they would be put directly into the uninhabited wilderness to survive. Now it seems that the program team is more cautious. There are people nearby, which means that the difficulty of survival in the wilderness will be lower this time. Is this a process of adaptation for them? Others were also assessing their environment. After Li Shuo got off the plane, he walked towards a hunchbacked old man in black. "Village chief, we are coming." Of course, the program team cannot just pick an uninhabited place and put artists in it. After all, it is just a program, and the safety of the guests must be ensured first. Otherwise, even if only one person is involved in an accident, it won't be enough to compensate the entire program team. In fact, before the filming of the show started, professionals had already selected the specific location, and had even started a journey of survival in advance to ensure that subsequent guests would not encounter life-threatening dangers. Only then did the official ceremony begin. Start filming. This village has naturally greeted the guests in advance. When the guests start their week-long journey of survival, the behind-the-scenes staff of the program team will be stationed in this village. "You are quite impressive," the old man spoke broken Mandarin and looked at the plane parked in the open space with some amazement. "The place has been taken care of for you. Thank you for your hard work. During this period, we promise not to disturb the normal life of the villagers. It's okay to bother me, we haven't seen such a lively scene for a long time, even though we live here." Li Shuo was silent for a moment. As the director of the entire program, this was not his first time in this place. "Of course, I also know that there are not many people living in the village in front of me. The younger people have moved away with their families, leaving only some old people who have lived here all their lives and just want to guard the village. Uncle, you are busy, we can make arrangements here ourselves." The old man took one more look at the large airplane, which he probably only had a close encounter with in his life, and then left with his hands behind his back and 1 foot shallow and 1 foot shallow. The place where the plane landed was a large open space that had been prepared in advance. When the plane flew away, the open space was temporarily changed into a shooting location. There were 2 more tents that were quickly set up not far away. After setting up the machine, the camera opened again, and the guests all looked towards the camera, Li Shuo standing behind. The first period of wilderness survival is about to begin, but before starting, there are still some preparations to be done. "The first point," Li Shuo said, looking at Zhang Ziyu, who was in a long skirt sweeping the floor, "in the 2 tents next to it, I have prepared clothes suitable for you to wear during the survival process. Now I will give you 10 minutes to enter the tent and change back." After saying this, Lin Jing was the first to walk towards the tent, and others followed. Zhang Lingzi reached out and opened the door of the tent with the word written on it. She lowered her head slightly and walked in. She saw 3 sets of neatly folded clothes on the table. Even shoes and socks were ready from the inside out. There was a note on each set of clothes. She picked up the set with her name on it and raised her eyebrows as soon as she picked it up. "This fabric is very strong and wear resistant, and it should be waterproof, but it will be difficult to test." There was an open space inside the tent. After confirming that the tent door was closed, Zhang Lingzi calmly began to unbutton her jacket. The second person to take the clothes was Sui, who also started to take off his clothes without any hesitation. Zhang Ziyu touched the last remaining set and wrinkled his eyebrows slightly. "The material is so rough, wouldn't wearing this make the skin red or even worn?" She thought that the three of them would go to the director to report the problem of the clothing material to see if they could change it to a better material. With more people, the probability of success would be higher. But he didn't expect the words to come out, and he didn't wait for a word of agreement. Turning around, I saw that John Lindsay had already started to put on a vest, and another amateur female guest had already started to put on pants. Both of them obviously didn't worry about the material of their clothes. This makes her seem a bit pretentious. Having no choice but to start changing. John Lindsay the laces of the short boots on her feet. When she stood up, she saw that Zhang Ziyu was still fighting with the clothes in his hands, as if rubbing them a few more times would make them softer. The time for changing clothes is limited. Zhang Ziyu made a movement with his hands, gritted his teeth and put on the stiff top. John Lindsay saw that she had zipped up her jacket, then she reached out and neatly opened the tent door and walked out. Seeing Sui exiting the tent right after, Zhang Ziyu only had time to pull his disheveled hair out of his clothes and follow up with his untied short boots. The other 5 male guests had already changed their clothes and returned to the camera. Turning around when he heard the footsteps, he first saw John Lindsay and Sui walking in front, who were full of capable and valiant faces, and then saw Zhang Ziyu with long hair following behind. It's just that this long hair, paired with the black training uniform that facilitates movement, makes people feel somewhat awkward. Yu Huiwen saw with sharp eyes that the laces on Zhang Ziyu's shoes had not been tied yet, and he wanted to go over and help her tie them immediately. But until the person came closer, he only dared to give a small reminder. Li Shuo glanced at Zhang Ziyu's long hair that was still disheveled and didn't say anything. He just watched everyone arrive, cleared his throat and announced, "Now that everyone has changed their clothes, the next step is material issues. I'd like to say that I'm sorry. All the luggage you brought is now mine and will be returned in full in a week. However, I also have compensation. Before the journey of survival begins, each of you will have the opportunity to pick out 3 items. Supplies you can take with you." As soon as he finished speaking, 2 staff members wearing sunglasses placed a long folding table in front of the camera, with a lot of messy things densely packed on the table. Li Shuo smiled and said, "There are a total of 24 items on the table, and each item is different. So there must be a certain order of selection." Zhang Kaiwen's eyes were full of confidence that he could see through all his calculations. "I guess the next question is going to come up." Li Shuo snapped his fingers and said, "Smart, next, there will be a survival knowledge quiz. Whoever thinks of the answer will raise their hand first. 1 point will be added for a correct answer, and 1 point will be deducted for a wrong answer. There are 24 questions in total. In the end, the order of selection will be decided according to the score. By the way, we just reported backstage that the Survival Live broadcast room is now officially open. Please remember to perform well next." After hearing this, everyone immediately stood up straighter, held their heads high and held their chests high, bound to show their best in front of the audience. At the same time, a large number of viewers who had made reservations in advance crowded into the live broadcast room that was delayed for more than 10 minutes. The Wilderness Survival Live broadcast begins here. End of this chapter.